Whatever happened to that trenchcoat kid in your school? There was 2 of them at college, man and woman both wore matching suits. They broke up in 2nd year. He disappeared, she became normal. She absorbed his powers. He snapped after high school, tried to off himself, and his parents stuck him in a residential depression rehab for a year or something. Came out wearing pastel polo shirts and crap. He's a physiotherapist now and people in touch with him tell me he's happy. Huh, good to hear the rehab worked. Around May, he shaved almost all his hair off, threw away his trench coat and replaced it with a leather jacket. He did so because people kept joking that he was gonna shoot up the school, and no matter how much he denied it, school administrators were beginning to take it seriously. Nothing like constantly bullying the guy they think will shoot up the school until the school administrators start to take it seriously and single the guy out to make a perfectly stable person that definitely won't shoot up a school. He was a classic trench coat type. He had a coffin-shaped backpack, always looked out of it, and barely talked to anyone. He dressed in all black and had a lot of chains around his neck and rings on his fingers. It wasn't that gave him a creepy vibe. It was just his general demeanor. One could tell there was something not right about him. He went to jail for molesting several children in a daycare center the year after I graduated high school. He's going to be released this summer. Goddamn, that escalated quickly. In middle school during lunch hour, we would have gym teachers monitoring the cafeteria and selecting tables to go get in line to get lunch. Students would come from class, sit at their respective table, and wait for their table to be chosen. One of the gym teachers was a power-thirsty dickhead and would purposefully skip an entire table of students and select the next one just because he didn't like one of the students that happened to be sitting at that table. Finally, one day our resident trenchcoat kid freaked out, stood on the lunch table and began berating the teacher using every insult he could muster up in his infinite rage. After his rant, he grabbed a full lunch tray from another student and threw it at the teacher. He then bolted through the double doors that led to the front lawn of the campus and took off down the street. Literally never saw him again. Oh my god. He literally rage quitted school. He tried to make money by setting up a bike chop shop. Then he tried to make money by creating an underground dong fighting league. Then he tried to make money by buying and selling cars at auctions. He actually made some money this time and managed to fund himself through university. Halfway through, his parents won the lottery. The dad tried to take the money and run, but he was stopped and the assets frozen. Trenchcoat kid graduates dropped out of university, who even knows, and tries to get some of the lottery money himself. He didn't get any because his family all seemed to hate each other. He then sold everything he had and drove to Mongolia, from the UK, where his car broke down. He crashed on some random guy's couch for a few weeks before he managed to sell what remained of his car and buy a motorbike. He then rode it to China. He got a job teaching English in a couple of days. Apparently the demand is huge for native speakers. He got fired after a few months. No idea why. He now sells electric bikes to expats in China. This is me. Pretty much the story of my life, and yes, I have and am currently considering ditching everything and running away. It seems like a pretty logical thing to do when your life is crap, your family is crap, they all hate each other, and your job is crap. The only thing holding me back is I can't decide whether I wanna run away or join the military. There was a guy at my HS by the nickname of Grungy, had a mohawk, went across the street to smoke his cigarettes. Mumbled most of what he spoke to anybody of that. I didn't really interact with him at all, but when I was older I met a guy who asked what HS I went to. When I told him, he asked, "Did you know Grungy?" I told him I knew of him, but that was it. Apparently they were really good friends, but Grungy died of some heart condition a year ago or so before that. From the stories he told me about him, he was a pretty nice guy. AWW. Now I feel bad for Grungy. A couple years ago I was dating a girl I went to high school with. This was like 10 years after we graduated. We had a cooking class together with this trenchy kid named Reese. He was nice and we got along with him. We were wondering how he was doing, and looked him up on Google. He pulled a gun on a cop and got killed, so he wasn't doing great. He wasn't doing great. I think that's a safe assumption. He now works at a local sawmill in which he uses his money to build his sword collection. Also is a huge fan of anime and speaks in a Scottish accent to any new person he meets. Reminds me of a proto-neckbeard kid I knew in school who was named Charles, but decided to start going by Charlemagne instead. He jumped off the top of the bleachers when they were collapsed, tried to land on his feet, too, instead of doing a tuck and roll, shattered his ankles, and we didn't really see him after that. I think he works for the Volunteer Fire and Rescue now, though. I'm imagining this as the start of a movie, where the finale is that he has a child on his back and needs to escape from a fire that's destroyed the front half of the bleachers. He stands on the back, and suddenly we flash back to his previous attempt. Sweat pours down his face as he used his last ounce of strength to leap forward, completing the jump he couldn't years before. Didn't see him for years, and then he appeared on my FB when I was in university. He was trying to convince me to buy weed off of him. I think he said he had a set 7 grams. Clearly a kingpin. Since then, he started working at a fast food chain. Saw a photo of him recently. Still wears a coat and the fedora from high school, but he'd be 25 now probably. If he's selling quarter ounces to people he doesn't know very well, he was probably just a mall ninja and not a career dealer. Someone found a list he had of almost 100 names. He got called to the counselor's office and I never saw him again. My name was somewhere on the list. Had a kid in my high school with a list of names of girls he'd hooked up with. The principals found it and thought it was a hit list. In front of his parents he had to explain it was just a different type of hit list. That was probably me. Everyone thought I was going to shoot up the school because of the time I was escorted out of class by the cops due to an anonymous tip that I was going to shoot up the school. I'm an engineer now, and have still never touched a gun in my life. I was a trenchcoat kid before Columbine. Those buttholes really messed up a good thing, man. He works at the grocery store, claims he is dating a 12-year-old girl, believes he is a werewolf, vampire, and a dragon. Werewolf maybe, vampire it's possible, dragon now that's when you know he's full of crap. He had a really long and unkempt mullet with a scum stash, and I swear to God he couldn't turn left. He would spin all the way around to the right. He also refused to take the stairs when he could. Instead, he would climb the walls and railings, which earned him the nickname Spider Mullet Man from me. Not sure what became of him. He's not an ambi turner. He can't turn left. He got expelled in high school for slashing some younger kids' paintings that were hanging in the hall. Then he went on to harass me and others on Facebook for years with weird requests. For a while he was offering to pay me to bring cigarettes to his house, which I wanted nothing to do with. Then he blew up at me because I added his only true friend on Facebook and threatened me because he was worried I would tell lies about him to said friend. A bunch of other crazy messages were sent too. I just tried not to engage him. I see him at Chipotle sometimes, but luckily he doesn't recognize me anymore. Please, I'm from Colorado. Trench coats have been banned since 1999. That being said, we did have one guy who at least in attitude had that trench coat vibe. He was a weird kid. My friend dated him for a while. He got into hardcore drugs when we were seniors. He was a male stripper for a while when we were in college, and then he dropped off the face of the earth. Stopped talking to people, deleted Facebook and Twitter, changed his phone number. No one knows where he went or what happened to him. Not even his folks or his brother. I go to a school in the same district as Columbine, and that doesn't stop kids from wearing trench coats at all. This year on 4/20 anniversary of the 99 shooting, we had one kid get expelled for wearing a trench coat and sunglasses and walking around with his hand in his coat like he had a gun. Some people don't learn. He works for a vape place. Spent some time in a crack house believing some culty crap about being a werewolf. Basically exactly what we all expected. It sounds absolutely insane in a different way, but I almost envy people that at some point believe absolutely crazy crap like being a werewolf. Like, life is so boring and normal, I can't imagine how exciting it would be to actually think you were some sort of mythical nonsense. Crazy, but probably kinda fun in a bad crap way. Stupid sanity. I was the trenchcoat kid. Now I'm married with children and spend my days working corporate IT, otherwise known as Redditing all day. He got in huge trouble with a librarian. He checked out a large book, one of those look at the inside of planes ships type encyclopedia, very oversized, He would read it every day on the bus. Not that weird, especially since he was the weird kid. Turns out he was using the large book so he could read Playboy on the bus every day. They found out because he left the magazine in when he returned IT. He got suspended and ended up changing schools. Unrelated, his parents needed to move for work. That's such a lame reason to suspend someone. LOL. He's a jailer now and is currently waiting to go to the police academy. He's also engaged to his girlfriend of 3 years. Turns out he's pretty cool. Went completely off the rails, became alcoholic, alienated all his friends, is now claiming to be transgender, something which a lot of his ex-close friends doubt, as he has a history of claiming stuff like that for attention. Yeah, my ex-best friend was dating a fake transgender. Apparently, a lot of people pretend to be fake because of the attention that they receive. It got tatty around the edges, so I threw it away. Shortly after, I got a haircut. It was all downhill from there, really. But being tatted just makes it better. I was the Trenchcoat kid. I dropped out of high school because of therapy and started working. Eventually got bored of boring jobs, so I went to college and now run a successful massage therapy practice. Ah, a happy ending. This was pre-Columbine, but there was this weird kid in our very small private high school. 400 kids total. I believe he was autistic, but I had no exposure to him. We were using the track system, which kept all of us very stuck in the same 20 people groups, so I didn't have any classes with him. I was a scholarship kid on the AP track. I think he was on the slow track. My best friend, middle track, may have had some classes with him. Every single day at lunch she would put her things down at our table then go talk to him. He sat alone, behind us. One day I asked her, "Why do you have these daily conversations with him?" She said, "See that paper in his hands? It is a hit list, and I am determined not to be on it." Didn't take it seriously. Now I wonder, was he really planning something? And what happened to him? My heart breaks for him, but I also wonder if he ever did anything. Not at school, but maybe later in real life. Wish I could remember his last name. I don't know if I'd call him the Trenchcoat kid, but he had a duster and was kinda odd. He's still one of my best friends. Doesn't have the coat anymore, introduces himself to people as random ASOIAF characters, and can't find a decent job. Ah, Craig. I heard a rumor that he got arrested and was in prison, but he came into the store I worked at in the mall one day. He didn't remember me, but it's hard to forget him. He's still a bit strange, but not nearly like what he was back in high school. He ditched his trench coat and was wearing a plain t-shirt tucked into jeans a bit too short, showing off a pair of white socks, held up by a belt that was very unaligned with the button. The thing about our Trenchcoat kid was that he didn't look like one on the surface. There was always something vaguely off about his appearance. He wore sweater vests on infrequent occasions, for instance, but his attitude and demeanor seemed to mark him as being more of a pompous that guy than any kind of a threat. Only in conversation would his true colors start to show, when he'd offer some of the most off-the-wall conspiracy theories that I've ever heard. On one memorable occasion, I was forced to work with this fellow on a group project. He spent the entire time regaling me with a description of how gold jewelry of any variety allowed the government to spy on unwary citizens. This was why, he told me, tax incentives were offered to married couples. Wedding rings were actually tracking devices, each of which had been manufactured in Fort Knox, which was a secret facility run by the Freemasons. The Catholic Church was allegedly in on it, too, given that they encouraged parishioners to wear Auric crucifixes. I may have exacerbated things when I asked him about circuitry. Anyway, I haven't had any contact with the fellow in decades, if my brief internet search can be believed, though. He now works as a real estate agent in the same city where we went to school, and he has taken to wearing his sweater vests with impunity. I can only imagine the subtle hints he might drop to newlywed couples in the market for their first houses. TLDR, our Trenchcoat kid was a sweater vest kid, but only on the surface. There was this kid in my high school. Dad committed suicide, so he was never really right. He was the kid that would go 0-100 real quick if you said the wrong thing. so having even a casual conversation with him was always pretty nerve-wracking. Someone joked about his dad without knowing about it and he literally fought off 2 security guards twice his size in rage. He also blocked a door to keep his class from leaving with a knife after the class bell rang because no one knew it was his birthday. Anyway, one of our friends accidentally found him on social media a few years after we graduated. He goes by a different name now and is a she. Long hair, dress and all in the photos. Don't really know much more than that, but it was definitely a weird experience seeing that. We're all just glancing over the knife comment I see. I was the kid who wanted a trench coat but couldn't find one at Goodwill. Only place I could get my clothes, so I got the closest thing I could find. Like a big black denim coat with tons and tons of pockets. I would keep a little book of Poe's poems in one pocket, and an H.P. Lovecraft book in another. I normaled up in high school, made a bunch of friends, started going to church, saw a lot of the world, came home, got married, and had a baby. All in a day's work. I taught a college course with a trenchcoat kid, but he wasn't the creepy kind of trenchcoat kid. Moreover, I have no idea how to dress or how to act like a regular person kind of trenchcoat kid. He wore this trenchcoat year round and about 50% of the time he came to class, it was misbuttoned. His clothes looked like he just grabbed random items from his grandfather's closet, plus trench coat, and he constantly spoke like he was writing a formal letter while using a thesaurus. He ended up writing this really awesome thesis for his undergrad program that brought together 2 subjects I would have thought had nothing to do with each other. I ended up meeting someone who went to high school with this guy and was told that throughout high school, the kid spoke with an English accent despite being American, born in the US to American parents. His parents were fairly well known in the community, so it's not like he could have gotten away with lying about being from England. Smart kid and totally harmless, but the trench coat didn't help him fit in at all. I was best friends with him up until he was expelled. He was stupid. I mean, real goddamn stupid. Like, he was stupid for a stupid teenager. Granted, not all teens are stupid, but there's a subset of teens who are really dumb and eventually grow out of it. He didn't grow out of it. He was obsessed with 2 things in middle school, the Crow and pro wrestling. He started wearing his trench coat around 8th grade, and kept it on, even in summer, for several years, until April 27, 1999, a week to the day after Columbine. In his infinite idiocy, he made a joke about shooting up the school, right after the school was evacuated for a bomb threat, in front of the principal. A week after Columbine, expelled without question. He dropped out the next year. Now he's 35, wears Kevin Smith style shorts, still into everything we were into as teenagers, and has shown very little personal growth. I mean, it's one thing to be a teenager and be a little childish. You're a teenager, you're still technically a child, and it's totally fine to be a bit of a nerd. Lord knows I am, and my kid loves it. But to almost be 40 and still living like you did as a teenager, that's as frustrating to see as it is sad. Lives in a trailer, fries burgers for a living. Never figured out that being smart isn't enough. You have to have some drive, work hard, and have people on your side. If you just quietly sit there and know everything, it's exactly the same as sitting there and knowing nothing, except with better internal dialogue. Well, after he was arrested for bringing a gun and knives to school, we dated for a bit. He's now married with a few kids. Ended up becoming a firefighter for a local department. He died a few years later responding to a chemical explosion at a factory. I still regularly see the effect it had on his mom. LOL. I was the trenchcoat kid with a mohawk, now making 6 figures in IT. Had to get rid of the mohawk when my bald spot showed up. Rip the mohawk. I was the trenchcoat kid. I work for the government. I belong to several community program committees. Do charity work. I wear a lot of dresses and bright colors now. Live in a middle class neighborhood. Drive a pickup truck. Have a bunch of small dogs and cats. Spend a lot of time working on my lawn and tending to my flower beds and vegetable garden. I have an alarming amount of firearms though. I'm a hunter. So there's one thing everyone expected to happen. He was my number 1 crush my first 2.5 years of high school, and in 1996 I came back from winter break to find my friend Elle, who was his best friend, with eyes redder than they'd ever been. Usually it was from all the pot he smoked. This time, nope, and I'm usually quiet. I asked him what was wrong and he told me W had died over break. He and his family never got along and he had a fight with his mother and decided to hurt himself to hurt her. So he shot himself in the stomach area, blew a huge hole in himself, was dead before the ambulance arrived I believe, and since this was capital T capital S, the South, and I wasn't out of the closet yet, I had to suffer in silence because the guy I'd fantasized about for years was suddenly gone. And we'd never been close friends so no one could figure out why I took it so hard. To add insult to injury, the teacher in charge of the yearbook decided that any memorial for him would be glorifying suicide so she didn't set aside any space for him at all. No memorial, no senior picture, not even a blank space where his picture should have been. The only place in my junior his senior yearbook where you can see his face is in 2 class photos. In one you can sort of see his face in a school bus window and in another you can sort of see him standing in the background. When we demanded to know why they did this, we were told, well, we didn't want to glorify suicide, but you were welcome to buy ad space in the back for your own personal memorials if you'd really wanted to. They'd never said anything about that to anyone who loved him. They never said anything at all about not including him at all, outside of those 2 tiny photos where he's on the outskirts of a group. I was the Trenchcoat kid in high school. I'm 47 now and live a fairly normal life. I wasn't goth or psycho or anything, just very introverted. I was the Trenchcoat kid in school. My friends and I were joking around about Columbo and decided it would be funny to get trench coats. So we did. Then Columbine happened. So now I'm in high school, with a group of friends that all wear black trench coats. We're not stopping because we didn't plan to shoot up the school, and damn it this coat cost me $100. So yay, I was the Trenchcoat Mafia for the last year of school, which kinda sucked. Oddly, I still have the trench coat to this day. It doesn't fit me anymore, but I can't seem to part with it. After all it cost me $100. I was the Trenchcoat kid, but I never wore a trench coat, so I don't know if it counts. But I was the kid people thought was most likely to shoot the place up. Growing up, I had a few issues. Unstable family life, separation issues, undiagnosed or treated anxiety and depression, and a pretty bad rage addiction. I had one heck of a temper, and combined with hormones from puberty, freshman year was pretty rough for me. I was the kid that got tripped in the hallways, talked about behind their back, picked on, teased, beaten up. People would even pretend to be my friend in fear that I'd actually retaliate and shoot up the school, which is the one that probably hurt the most. I wasn't even a weird kid. I liked Slipknot, video games, anime, and junk food. I just wanted to be left alone and draw, and play Halo and Magic the Gathering. But since it wasn't sports or skating, of course, I was different, and therefore targeted. I never shot any place up. Today, I'm 23. I have a wonderful girlfriend, and we're getting engaged next year. She doesn't know that yet. Should be getting an apartment together soon too. I have a lot of good friends and we play Magic the Gathering and video games together regularly. When I'm not working 60 hours a week as a security guard, I still like Slipknot and junk food too. I ended up pretty okay. Most of my bullies ended up in jail, on drugs, homeless, or dead. Last I heard of some of them. That kid was me. I got my master's in art and teaching art history part-time at the local community college. I also work at the local craft store in town. I get by and hope to be full-time at college one day. I went to Westerberg High School in Sherwood, Ohio. The weird trenchcoat kid staged a few murders as suicides, then tried to blow up the school during a pep rally, ending up blowing himself up instead, though. Well, frick me gently with a chainsaw. This made me laugh. I was the trenchcoat kid at my high school. Wasn't even my coat. My dad bought it for himself but thought it looked better on me. I wore that thing all the way through college because it was dang warm and I thought I looked cool. Even had my senior photos taken with it. I remember people whispering about how I was going to shoot up the school and just had to shake my head. I was a judge's son, a Boy Scout, a church youth group member, and I was in the freaking chess club. How much more dorky and clean cut could I have been? Now I'm a registered dietitian and I wear a shirt and tie all day even though I don't have to. I think it looks cool. He got a job repairing helicopters and works with steel, making knives. He's currently building a forge so he can try his hand at making Damascus steel. He was actually always a cool dude. Went off to college and got obsessed with anime and My Little Pony. He now has nice government IT job that he loves. Also, I was the Trenchcoat kid in our school. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.